Jake Rivera stood in the scanning chamber for the fourth time in 20 minutes, arms spread wide like he was about to hug the universe's most paranoid robot. The Dalarian security apparatus, a chrome contraption that looked like a medical scanner had mated with a paranoid fever dream, hummed and clicked around him with increasing agitation. "Still nothing," announced the security chief, a 7-foot-tall crystalline being whose voice sounded like wind chimes having an anxiety attack. "No weapons. No defensive systems. No neural enhancements. Not even a combat stim dispenser." Jake suppressed a yawn. "Told you guys. I'm clean." The assembled alien security team exchanged what he assumed were meaningful looks. Hard to tell with species that communicated through color changes, pheromone releases, and what appeared to be interpretive dance. But the vibe was definitely, "We're all going to die because the human is too stupid to arm himself." Ambassador Kess, the lead Dalarian negotiator, floated closer on her gravity nullifiers. Her gossamer features shifted through several shades of what Jake had learned meant deeply concerned. In the 3 years since humanity had joined the Galactic Council, he'd gotten pretty good at reading alien body language. Mostly because his continued existence depended on it. "Guard Rivera," she said, her voice carrying that musical quality that made every Dalarian sound like they were about to break into song. "Perhaps you could explain to the Council why your species chooses to attend diplomatic functions, unprotected?" Jake glanced around the conference chamber. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive space, each delegation surrounded by enough firepower to glass a small moon. The Zenthri had brought what looked like a walking tank. The Vex delegation sat behind a shimmering force field that probably cost more than Earth's entire GDP. Even the peaceful Malari had arrived with sonic disruptors that could turn someone's internal organs into soup. And then there was the human delegation. Jake. Ambassador Patricia Wells, who was currently reviewing trade agreements like she was checking her grocery list. And Elena, his handler, who existed primarily as a neural link voice in his ear and an occasional holographic projection. "Well," Jake said, settling into his favorite diplomatic pose, hands in pockets, weight shifted to one leg, the universal human stance of, "I'm way too relaxed for this situation, it's complicated." Council Director Vorth, a Zenthri who'd spent the better part of 3 decades trying to understand human psychology, leaned forward. His 4 eyes focused on Jake with the intensity of someone trying to solve a puzzle that might explode. "Please, elaborate." Elena's voice buzzed in Jake's neural implant. "Remember the briefing. Keep it vague. Let them think." "The thing is," Jake continued, "we found that bringing weapons to diplomatic meetings tends to complicate things. Creates expectations. Escalates tensions. You know how it is." "No," said Ambassador Kess, her color shifting to what Jake recognized as frustrated confusion, "we do not know how it is. Every civilized species understands that diplomatic protection is essential. The risks are calculated differently by different species," Jake interrupted gently. He'd learned that interrupting aliens was either deeply offensive or showed confident leadership, depending on the species. With Dalarians, it was apparently the latter. "See, you folks live for what, 800 years on average?" 843 standard years, Kess corrected. "Right. So when you're making decisions, you're thinking long-term. Really long-term. You've got centuries to see the consequences play out. Makes sense that you'd want to be careful, bring protection, minimize risks." Jake paused, letting that sink in. "Humans. We're lucky if we hit 90. Most of us are done by 80. That changes your perspective on, well, everything." The chamber fell silent except for the various mechanical hums, clicks, and whistles of alien life support systems. Jake could practically hear the gears turning in their heads, or whatever passed for heads in some cases. Director Vortha's primary eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that humans are reckless because of your abbreviated lifespans?" "Reckless?" Jake laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the vast chamber. No, not reckless. We're just comfortable with certain realities that make other species nervous. Elena's voice crackled in his ear. They're starting to get it. Keep pushing. Jake looked around the room again, taking in all the defensive measures, the weapons systems, the careful positioning of delegates behind protective technology. You want to know why we don't bring weapons to diplomatic meetings? It's not because we're naive. It's not because we're peaceful. It's because we figured out something that apparently nobody else has. The silence stretched longer this time. Jake could see the various alien delegates leaning forward, their attention focused on him with the intensity of predators watching prey. Or maybe prey watching a predator. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference in interspecies relations. Which is, prompted Ambassador Kess, her voice tight with what Jake was learning to recognize as mounting concern. Jake smiled, the expression that had gotten him through 3 divorces, 2 career changes, and one particularly memorable incident involving a hostage situation and a very angry bear. It was the smile of someone who'd looked at the universe's worst-case scenarios and decided they were Tuesday. We figured out that sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do is show up somewhere completely defenseless. Because it makes everyone else wonder what you know that they don't. The trade negotiations had been going smoothly until the Corvani delegation decided to flex. Their lead negotiator, an insectoid creature with too many teeth and an attitude problem, suddenly stood and activated what looked like a personal shield generator mixed with a small sun. These terms are unacceptable, he hissed, mandibles clicking in what Jake assumed was the Corvani equivalent of cracking knuckles. Perhaps the human delegation needs a reminder of the consequences of unreasonable demands. The chamber erupted in the controlled chaos of 47 species simultaneously reaching for their weapons. Force fields shimmered to life. Plasma rifles hummed with charging energy. The Zen-3 tank thing actually took a step forward, its cannon swiveling toward the human delegation. Ambassador Wells looked up from her data pad with the expression of someone whose conference call had just been interrupted by a toddler having a meltdown. Oh, are we doing threats now? How quaint. Jake didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't activate any defensive systems. He didn't even move from his relaxed position against the wall. Instead, he pulled out his personal tablet and started scrolling through what appeared to be his social media feed. Guard Rivera, Director Vortha's voice carried a note of panic that was impressive for a species known for emotional control. Perhaps now would be an appropriate time to. To what? Jake asked, not looking up from his tablet. Get scared. Start shooting. Beg for mercy. He finally raised his eyes to scan the room, taking in all the weapons, all the defensive positions, all the very serious aliens who were clearly prepared for violence. See, this is what I was talking about. You all think in terms of survival. Self-preservation. Living to see another day, another year, another century. The Corvani negotiator's shield flared brighter. You mock us at your peril, human. Not mocking, Jake said, pocketing his tablet. Just observing. You know what humans did back on Earth when we figured out nuclear weapons? We built enough of them to kill everyone on the planet 12 times over. Not to win wars, to make sure that if we went down, everybody went down. Elena's voice in his ear was sharp. Jake, careful. Don't give away too much. He ignored her. We called it mutually assured destruction. Mad. Because it was mad. Completely insane. The logic was simple, if you attack us, we all die. If we attack you, we all die. If anyone attacks anyone, everyone dies. So maybe, nobody attacks anyone. The chamber had gone quiet except for the hum of charging weapons. Jake could feel the weight of dozens of alien gazes trying to parse what he was saying, trying to understand the implications. The thing is, Jake continued, his voice conversational, like he was discussing the weather, that strategy only works if you're genuinely comfortable with the idea of dying. And most species aren't. You live too long. You have too much to lose. Too many years ahead of you to risk throwing it all away on a point of principle. Ambassador Kessa's color had shifted to what Jake was pretty sure meant existential dread. You are suggesting that humans would choose mutual destruction over compromise? Not choose, Jake corrected. Accept. See, when you only live 80 years, and you've already used up 40 or 50 of them, the math changes. You start thinking about what you want to be remembered for. Whether the principles you've stood for your whole life are worth dying for. He shrugged. Most of us decide they are. The Corvani negotiator's shield flickered. You are bluffing. No species is truly willing to. To what? Die. Jake laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the tense chamber. Friend, I've buried both my parents, 3 of my best friends, and a dog I loved more than most people. I've been divorced 3 times, survived cancer twice, and spent 2 years in therapy learning to accept that my life is fundamentally temporary. Death isn't some distant theoretical concept for humans. It's Tuesday. Director Vorth was very slowly backing away from the confrontation. What are you saying, exactly? Jake finally pushed himself off the wall, moving with the casual grace of someone who'd made peace with mortality. I'm saying that right now, in this room, you're all doing math. Calculating odds. Weighing the value of your potential centuries of life against the risks of this confrontation. Wondering if it's worth it. He walked closer to the center of the chamber, past all the weapons, all the defensive systems, all the very concerned aliens. I'm not doing that math. You know why? Because I'm going to be dead in 30 years anyway. Maybe 40 if I'm lucky. So the question isn't whether I'm willing to die for this negotiation. The question is whether I'm willing to let you live through it. The silence stretched like a held breath. Jake could see the realization dawning in alien eyes, color patterns, pheromone releases, and various other indicators of cosmic scale, oh shit, moments. You see, Jake continued, his voice still conversational, still casual, you brought all these weapons because you want to live. I didn't bring any weapons because I'm already dead. I'm just not buried yet. That makes me the most dangerous person in this room, because I have absolutely nothing to lose. Elena's voice was quiet in his ear. Jake, they're getting it. So here's how this works, Jake said, addressing the room but looking directly at the Corvani negotiator. You can keep your shields up. You can keep your weapons charged. You can posture and threaten and calculate risks. But remember, I'm the guy who showed up to a galactic diplomatic summit with no protection whatsoever. What does that tell you about my risk assessment capabilities? The Corvani's shield powered down. The weapons around the room began to lower. The various defensive systems flickered and died as alien delegates slowly began to understand that they were facing something far more dangerous than any technology. They were facing a species that had looked at the universe's worst-case scenarios and decided they were acceptable losses. Now then, Ambassador Wells said, looking up from her data pad again, shall we continue with the trade negotiations? I believe we were discussing rare earth mineral quotas. Jake settled back against the wall, pulled out his tablet, and resumed scrolling through his social media feed. Just another Tuesday in the life of humanity's most effective diplomatic weapon. A middle-aged man who'd made peace with being mortal.